Hello and welcome back to English Junction. I am so happy to share another story with you today. Today we are going to explore a very powerful idea. Become unstoppable. What does unstoppable mean? Does it mean you never fail? Does it mean you are always strong? No. Being unstoppable means that when life hits you down, you don't stay down. You always find a way to stand up again. Many of us feel stopped by fear. We feel stopped by doubts. We feel stopped by the opinions of others. But what if you could learn a secret? A secret that makes you fearless? A secret that makes your inner voice louder than any outside noise? In this story, you will meet a young woman named Clara. She feels stopped by everything. But she will meet an old man who teaches her how to turn her weaknesses into her greatest strengths. This is a long 20-minute practice. As you listen, I want you to open your mind. Let the words flow over you. Think about your own life. What is stopping you? And how can you become unstoppable? Are you ready? Take a deep breath. Let's begin. Clara lived in a city made of glass and steel. Every building touched the sky. Every person walked fast. And every day, Clara felt like she was running into invisible walls. Clara was a talented architect. She drew beautiful designs for houses and bridges. Her ideas were new. They were brave. But when she spoke in meetings, her voice became small. Her hands shook. She wanted to build a revolutionary community, center for her city, a place where nature and modern design met. It was her dream project. But her boss, Mr. Harrison, was a strong, loud man. He liked old ideas. He liked safe ideas. Every time Clara tried to present her ideas, Mr. Harrison would say, "Clara, that's too expensive. Clara, that's too new. Clara, no one will understand it." These words were not physical walls, but they felt like iron. They stopped Clara. They made her doubt herself. She would go home, look at her designs, and feel a heavy sadness. "I am not strong enough," she would whisper. "I am not brave enough." One evening, Clara was walking home in the rain. She saw an old man sitting on a park bench sketching in a small notebook. He looked like he had no home. His clothes were old, but his eyes were bright like two stars. Clara usually walked past people without looking. She was afraid to talk to strangers. But something about this man made her stop. He was drawing the broken old statue in the park, but he was drawing it with so much joy, as if it were the most beautiful thing in the world. "Excuse me," Clara said, her voice still small. "What are you drawing?" The old man looked up and smiled. "I am drawing what others do not see, young lady. I am drawing the strength in the broken things." He pointed to the statue. "Everyone sees the cracks. I see the story, and the story is unstoppable." Clara looked at the statue. It was old and damaged, but still stood tall. She thought of herself. She felt broken. She felt damaged. But was there a story in her? Could she also be unstoppable? The old man's name was Elias. He had once been a great engineer, but he had traded his blueprints for a life of quiet observation. He saw Clara's sadness, and he knew exactly what she was carrying. It was the same weight he had carried years ago. "You look like you are waiting for permission to exist," Elias said, closing his notebook. Clara looked down at her boots. "I have ideas, Elias, big ideas. But every time I try to move forward, someone stops me. My boss, my fear, the city. I feel like I am fighting a storm." Elias stood up slowly and walked toward a massive oak tree at the edge of the park. It was ancient, with thick, twisted branches that reached into the gray sky. "Look at this tree," Elias said. 10 years ago, a terrible storm hit this city. It broke windows, it knocked down power lines, and it destroyed many of the smaller, younger trees. But this oak, it didn't move. Why? Clara looked at the tree. "Because it is strong?" "No," Elias replied. "Because it is deep. You see, the storm only attacks what is on the surface, but the oak has roots that go twice as deep as its branches are high. To become unstoppable, Clara, you must stop building your height and start building your depth." "What are my roots?" Clara asked. "Your roots are your why," Elias explained. Most people work for what? The money, the title, the praise. When someone says no to their what, they fall down. But when you work for your why, your passion, your purpose, your truth, no one can stop you. Because a no from a boss cannot touch a why in your soul. Elias told Clara to go home and look at her designs again. Don't look at them as a way to get a promotion. Look at them as a gift for the people. If you believe your work is a gift, you will not be afraid to give it. Clara went home that night and sat at her desk. She didn't think about Mr. Harrison. She didn't think about her shaking hands. She thought about the families who would sit in her community center. She thought about the children who would play there. She realized that she had been trying to be successful by other people's rules. But to be unstoppable, she had to follow her own. The next morning, the office felt colder than usual. Clara walked toward the conference room, her heart beating like a trapped bird. In her bag was the design for the community center. Mr. Harrison was already there. He was looking at his watch, his face like a piece of gray stone. "All right, Clara, let's see the safe version of the project. I hope you remove those expensive glass walls and the garden on the roof." Clara felt the old fear rising. Her throat felt tight. She looked at the white walls of the office and, for a moment, she wanted to say, "Yes, sir, I changed it." But then she remembered the oak tree. She imagined her roots going down past the office floor, deep into the earth. She didn't think about Mr. Harrison's opinion. She thought about the why. She didn't open the safe version. She pulled out her original revolutionary design. "Mr. Harrison," she began. Her voice shook for a second, then became steady. "I didn't change it. In fact, I made it better. This building isn't just a project. It is a place for the community to breathe. If we build it safe, we are building a box. If we build it right, we are building a future." The room went silent. The other architects looked down at their coffee cups. Mr. Harrison leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. "Are you arguing with me, Clara?" "No," Clara said, looking him directly in the eyes. "I am standing by the truth of the design. You can say no to me, Mr. Harrison, but you cannot say no to the fact that the city needs this." For the first time in her life, Clara realized something incredible. When you speak the truth without trying to win, you lose your fear. Mr. Harrison was a powerful man, but he was just a man. He could stop her promotion, but he couldn't stop her mind. Mr. Harrison stared at the blueprints for a long time. The silence stretched until it felt like it would break. Finally, he spoke. "It's too risky," he muttered. "But it's the only thing I've seen today that actually has a soul. Leave the papers. I'll think about it." Clara walked out of the room. She hadn't won the project yet, but she had won something much bigger. She had found her voice. She had become unstoppable because she was no longer a prisoner of his approval. A week later, the news came. It was not the news Clara wanted. Mr. Harrison called her into his office. "The board of directors looked at your design. Clara, they found it interesting, but they chose a different architect for the community center. They said it was too experimental for the current budget." Clara felt a sharp pain in her chest. She had found her voice, she had stood her ground, and she had still lost. As she walked out of the building, the city felt gray and mocking. She felt like a fool for listening to an old man in a park. "I wasn't unstoppable," she thought bitterly. "I was just loud, and now I have nothing." She went back to the park, hoping to find Elias. He was there, sitting on the same bench, but this time he wasn't sketching. He was holding a small ceramic bowl that had been broken into several pieces. He was carefully painting the cracks with a thick golden glue. "It's over, Elias," Clara said, sitting down heavily. "I tried. I used my roots. I spoke my why, and they still said no." "The wall is still there." Elias didn't look up. He continued to press the gold into the cracks. "Do you know what this is, Clara? In Japan, they call it Kintsugi. When a bowl is broken, they don't throw it away. They fix it with gold." "Why?" Clara asked. "It's still broken." "No," Elias said, finally looking at her. "It is stronger now, and it is more beautiful." Most people think that being unstoppable means you never break. But that is a lie. A stone never breaks, but it never grows either. To be truly unstoppable, you must be like this bowl. You must allow life to break your heart, and then you must fill the cracks with gold. "What is the gold?" Clara whispered. "The gold is your resilience," Elias said. "The gold is what you learn from the no. If you stop because of a failure, then you were stopped by your own ego, not by the board of directors. An unstoppable person doesn't see a no as a wall. They see it as a detour." Clara looked at the bowl. The gold lines didn't hide the breaks. They celebrated them. She realized that her failure wasn't the end of her story. It was just the first crack. "What do I do now?" she asked. "You don't need a board of directors to be an architect," Elias smiled. "The city is full of broken spaces that need a soul. If they won't let you build a center, go find a space that is already there and make it breathe." Clara did not go back to Mr. Harrison to beg for a second chance. She did not spend her nights crying over the no. Instead, she began to walk. She walked through the parts of the city that the big architecture firms ignored, the narrow alleys, the abandoned lots, and the gray corners where the paint was peeling. She found a small, forgotten square between 3 old apartment buildings. It was full of trash and broken glass. People walked through it quickly, their heads down, never looking up. "This is it," Clara thought. "This is a broken space that needs gold." She didn't have a budget. She didn't have a team of builders, but she had a why. She went to the local neighborhood meeting and asked if she could clean the square. The people looked at her with suspicion. "Why do you want to do that?" an old woman asked. "It's just a dirty alley. It will stay dirty." "It's not an alley," Clara said with a smile. "It's a heart that stopped beating. I want to help it start again." Every morning before work, Clara went to the square. She picked up the trash. She scrubbed the graffiti. She used her own money to buy bags of soil and seeds. Slowly, other people began to notice. A young boy helped her move a heavy bench. An old man brought her water. Clara began to use her architectural skills in a new way. She didn't build glass towers. She built wooden planters from old pallets. She didn't design expensive fountains. She created a path using beautiful, smooth stones from the river. This was the silent revolution. Clara realized that being unstoppable didn't mean shouting the loudest in a boardroom. It meant being so consistent and so dedicated to your purpose that the world around you had no choice but to change. One day, Mr. Harrison happened to drive past the square. He stopped his car. He saw the flowers blooming. He saw the children playing on the wooden benches. He saw the people of the neighborhood sitting together, talking and laughing. He saw Clara. She was covered in dirt. Her hair was messy and she was holding a shovel. She looked more powerful than any CEO he had ever met. She wasn't asking for permission anymore. She was simply creating. He realized then that you cannot stop. Someone who doesn't need your yes to keep moving. One Tuesday morning, the peace of the garden was broken by the sound of heavy engines. 2 large yellow trucks pulled up to the edge of the square. Men in orange vests climbed out, carrying clipboards and tools. A man in a sharp suit walked toward Clara. "Miss, I am from the Department of Urban Development. You don't have a permit for this garden. This is city property, and these wooden structures are not up to safety code. We have orders to clear the area." Clara felt a cold chill. The old Clara would have started crying. She would have apologized and walked away, feeling defeated. But this Clara had gold in her cracks. "I understand you have your orders," Clara said, her voice calm and firm. "But before you start the engines, I want you to look at that bench over there." The man looked. An old man was sitting there, reading a book in the sun. 6 months ago, Clara continued, this square was a place where people were afraid to walk. It was a place for trash and crime. Now, it is a place for neighbors. If you destroy this garden, you aren't just removing wood and flowers. You are removing the only safe place these people have. That may be true, the man said, looking slightly uncomfortable. But the law is the law. If everyone did what you did, the city would be chaos. You are just one person, and you cannot stop the city government. You are right, Clara replied. I am just one person. But I am an unstoppable person because I am not fighting for myself. I am fighting for them. She didn't move. She sat down on the ground in front of the planters. Slowly, the boy who helped her with the soil came and sat next to her. Then the old woman from the meeting. Then the man who brought the water. Within 10 minutes, 20 people were sitting in the dirt, forming a human wall around the flowers. The workers stopped. They looked at the man in the suit. He looked at his clipboard, then at the crowd, and then at the cameras of the people filming on their balconies. We have a problem, the man muttered into his radio. Clara realized that being unstoppable doesn't always mean moving forward, like a bulldozer. Sometimes it means being as still as a mountain. It means refusing to move when the world tells you that you are small. The standoff lasted for hours. The sun moved across the sky, casting long shadows over the human wall. The story of the architect of the alleys had reached the local news. Cameras arrived and reporters began asking questions. The man in the suit, whose name was Mr. Vance, was under a lot of pressure. His phone was ringing constantly. The city didn't want a safety issue, but they also didn't want a public relations disaster. Mr. Vance walked back to Clara. He didn't look angry anymore. He looked tired. Clara, listen. We can't just let this stay as it is. It's a liability. If someone trips on these wooden pallets, the city gets sued. Clara stood up. She saw an opening, not for a fight, but for a solution. Mr. Vance, I am an architect. I know the codes. What if we don't clear the area? What if we legalize it? I will redraw the designs to meet every safety standard. I will find sponsors to pay for the materials. We can turn this into the city's first community-led green space. Mr. Vance hesitated. The city doesn't have a process for that. Then let's create one, Clara said firmly. You have the power to sign the papers, and I have the skills to build the vision. Being unstoppable isn't about breaking the law. It's about making the law work for the people. Clara realized that sometimes the invisible wall isn't a person, it's a system. To be unstoppable, you have to be smarter than the system. You have to build a bridge instead of just trying to climb a wall. She spent the next 48 hours without sleep. She used her old laptop to create professional, high-level blueprints for the alley garden. She included drainage systems, safety railings, and lighting. She sent the files not just to Mr. Vance, but to every member of the city council. She didn't ask for a job. She didn't ask for money. She asked for a partnership. 2 days later, she received an email. The subject line read, Provisional approval. The city had agreed to a pilot program. The garden was safe. But more than that, Clara was now the official consultant for urban renewal in her district. She went to find Elias in the park to tell him the news. But his bench was empty. Only his small notebook was left behind. The park felt different without Elias. The air was colder, and the bench where he always sat looked lonely under the orange glow of the streetlights. Clara picked up the notebook he had left behind. It was worn and smelled like old paper and rain. On the first page, there was no drawing. There was only a short note written in a strong, steady hand. Clara, if you are reading this, it means you no longer need a teacher. Being unstoppable is not a destination. It is a way of walking. I have shown you the roots, the gold, and the bridge. Now, you must learn the final secret. To be truly unstoppable, you must be willing to walk alone until others are ready to walk with you. Clara sat on the bench. She realized that Elias hadn't disappeared because he was gone. He had disappeared because his job was finished. He was a spark, and now Clara was the fire. She opened the notebook further. It was filled with sketches of the city, not the city as it was, but the city as it could be. He had drawn gardens on top of bus stops. He had designed libraries inside old shipping containers. He had seen beauty in every broken corner. Suddenly, Clara's phone buzzed. It was a message from her old office. Mr. Harrison wanted her to come back. He offered her a massive salary, a private office, and the title of senior director. A year ago, Clara would have celebrated. She would have felt like she had finally made it. But as she looked at Elias's notebook, she realized that Mr. Harrison's offer was another golden cage. He wanted her talent to make his company look good, but he didn't care about the why. If she went back, she would be stopped again. She would be trapped by meetings, budgets, and the need for approval. No, she whispered to the empty park. She sent a short reply. Thank you for the offer, Mr. Harrison, but I am no longer an employee. I am an architect of the people. If you want to build something that matters, you can hire my firm, but I will never work for a box again. At that moment, Clara felt a strange, light feeling in her chest. It was the feeling of total freedom. She didn't have a big salary. She didn't have a fancy title. But she had something more powerful. She had autonomy. She was the owner of her own time and her own vision. Clara spent the next 3 years becoming a legend in the city. Not the kind of legend who appears on billboards, but the kind whose name is whispered with respect in every neighborhood. She started the Root Studio, an architectural firm that didn't have a fancy office. Their office was the street. They worked with local communities to turn broken spaces into gold. They built parks, small clinics, and outdoor classrooms. People often asked her, Clara, How do you keep going? How do you deal with the city councils? The lack of money and the people who doubt you? Clara would always smile and think of Elias. I am not looking at the wall, she would say. I'm looking at the space behind it. Once you find your why, the how becomes easy. You don't stop because you can't be stopped by anything outside of yourself. You can only be stopped if you give up on your own vision. She realized that the invisible walls she used to feel were just illusions. They were made of other people's fears and her own insecurities. Once she stopped asking for permission, the walls vanished. And that, my dear students, is the story of Clara. We started this journey talking about being unstoppable. Many people think this means being the fastest, the richest, or the loudest. But as we saw through Clara's eyes, being unstoppable is a quiet inner strength. It is about three things. 1, depth over height. Don't worry about how high you climb if your roots are not deep. Build your character and your purpose first. To Kintsugi, the golden repair. Don't be afraid to fail. When life breaks you, don't hide the cracks. Fill them with the gold of experience and resilience. You are more beautiful because you were broken. 3, the internal compass. Stop looking for likes or approval. If you wait for someone to tell you yes, you are giving them the power to tell you no. In your English journey, you will feel stopped. You will forget a word. You will make a grammar mistake. You will feel shy to speak. In those moments, remember, Clara, don't look at the mistake. Look at your why. Why are you learning? To connect? To grow? To help others? If your why is strong, your English will become unstoppable. Thank you for spending these 20 minutes with me at English Junction. You have worked hard, and you are getting better every single day. Go out into the world today and be like the oak tree. Be deep, be brave, be real. I believe in you. You are unstoppable. I will see you in our next lesson. Goodbye for now.